After almost 20 years in concrete tanks, Keiko, the star of Free Willy, was back in his home waters off the coast of Iceland. But could he ever truly be wild again? Keiko had a lot to learn. Almost his entire life revolved around humans, and he seemed to have a genuine love for people. Now his trainers were trying to wean him off of their attention, which may seem cruel, but if Keiko was ever going to survive in the wild, he needed to stop turning to humans for companionship and food. Keiko started to focus and engage more with his surroundings, and even started to chase and catch fish. Unfortunately, he seemed to think it was a fun game, and rather than eat the fish, he had a tendency to bring them to his keepers instead. To prepare Keiko for life in the ocean, where wild orca can easily swim over 100 kilometers a day, Keiko was taught to follow a boat and taken on walks during the summer months. This allowed him to swim in the open ocean and exercise while being monitored by caretakers. More importantly, caretakers took him on walks in an attempt to introduce him to wild orca. Now, no matter how I tell the rest of Keiko's story, someone is going to be mad, and that's simply because if you've ever heard Keiko's story before, you've likely heard a sensationalized version designed to fit the teller's narrative. Things like, Keiko was feeding with wild orca, or Keiko was eating rocks. Either way, I've chosen my own narrative, and I'm going to pull my sources from this study because I'm not interested in making you feel better or worse about a situation. Rather, I want you to know the facts. So Keiko was trained to follow a caretaker's boat, and in the summer of 2000 and 2001, he was brought to areas where Icelandic orca came to feed on summer spawning herring. And what's really cool is that during those summers, they biopsied some of the wild orca there and discovered that Keiko shared a genotype with some of the whales. The study says that Keiko and the wild killer whales seldom approached each other and often moved away from one another during this time. Now, hang on to this thought because we will get back to it, but first we have to pivot for a moment. Up until this point, a large portion of funding for Keiko's care was covered by telecom giant Craig McCaw, but the original reintroduction was only supposed to take 3 years. And remember, Iceland had originally only issued a permit for 3 years as well. And at the annual cost of around $3 to $3.5 million a year for Keiko's rehab, McCaw cut the purse strings in early 2002, and the Humane Society of the US stepped in. Do with that information as you will, and let's fast forward a few months. It's now summer of 2002, and a tracking device is placed on Keiko before he's taken for his summer walks. And now the caretaker boat has moved into full tough love mode. If Keiko approaches, the crew goes below the deck until he loses interest. Between July 7th to the 16th, Keiko spends most of his time logging roughly 100 to 300 meters away from the closest orca while pointing in their direction. Stomach samples showed no sign of feeding, and he returned to the sea pen and was fed. He was led back to the wild whales the following day on July 17th, and this is when he started getting braver. He was often seen within 30 meters of the closest whale. What's more is that Keiko is being seen with whales that were identified around him in both 2000 and 2001, and they seemed to be tolerating him. This would also be the only time he was ever observed directly interacting with wild whales, when he surfaced close to a group but quickly retreated back to the caretaker boat when one of the other orca tail slapped. At the end of July, he was observed doing vertical dives, and then in August, he takes off to Norway. When he does this, he completely veers off the normal migration route, and it's suspected he's alone at this time. On August 30th, Keiko is spotted in shallow waters off Norway. He seems energetic, and after he's examined, it's determined that his skin and body condition are good. And while there's no proof that he fed himself because he was alone at the time, it seems unlikely that he didn't. From here, Keiko starts initiating interactions with people, and at first he seems to love the constant attention. He lets people touch him, feed him, and even ride on his back. But the novelty seems to wear off for him, and with near constant harassment during the daytime, Keiko retreats between two skiffs, logging almost motionless for days. This is when the Norwegian government steps in and puts in legislation prohibiting people from approaching Keiko within 50 meters. After 4 days by the skiffs, Keiko's caretakers start feeding him again, and the following day they resume his walks. Keiko settles down for the winter in a bay pen where he has access to open water. He would spend the rest of his life in Norway completely dependent on humans, and he would never integrate into a wild pod of orca. In December of 2003, Keiko showed signs of lethargy and changes in his breathing pattern on top of foul-smelling breath. And on December 12, 2003, Keiko would beach himself before passing away. The cause of death for the beloved star was thought to be pneumonia, but no necropsy was ever performed, and within 24 hours of his death, Keiko was buried. While Keiko is gone, he touched the hearts of millions of people worldwide, and his gentle spirit in the face of adversity continues to inspire people to this day.